Hey guys, welcome to our Reactivity Q&A for February. I'll wait a few minutes before I start fully for a few people to join. Got about 9 questions to answer. If you have any other questions, then feel free to drop them in the comments. Yeah, and we'll see what we can get through today. I've got some really varied questions, so that's gonna be good. Because I'm strapped for time, I'm just gonna go straight into it now, and hopefully people can watch it later or join whenever they want. Alright, so the first question is from Catherine Smith. What's your view on e-collars or prongs? We have been counter conditioning for a year and slowly engaging guests. Still, I'm not sure she will ever be fine. Thoughts? Should we keep going? How do I am for e-collars. I'm not against prongs. I must say I've never really used a prong because I started dog training in Melbourne and they are officially not allowed to be used in Melbourne, so I kind of just learned my way without using prongs. But I use e-collars all the time. I'm actually doing an e-collar program at the moment with a dog to deal with a bit of reactivity. I think it's important though that you find a good trainer that can help you with the e-collar. I'm very much against just buying one and putting it on the dog and like experimenting with it, because that's how you get these bad experiences and dogs that are suffering and hurting. Because I know a lot of dog trainers will say, oh, e-collar doesn't hurt. It doesn't on low levels, but it does on high levels, right? So if you use it wrong, you can hurt your dog. But with a good trainer, you never need to get to the painful levels, right? You've been counter conditioning for a year and slowly engaging guests. Like, look, I don't really know what your dog's issue is and what you've been doing, but I think a year for counter conditioning is really quite long. So I would be interested, and that's just me responding on like a surface level, right? Because again, I don't know how severe the reactivity is, what breed your dog is, and all those type of things. So it really depends on that. But I would not be counter conditioning a dog for a year. I would definitely be doing some other things as well, that maybe using an e-collar, or maybe using a different type of structure or correction to get progress a little bit faster. So I hope that helps. Question 2 from Lisa Hagee. I think I said that right. I have a foster dog that not much is known about his background, and he is reactive to people. I've gotten him to where he can be around strangers without wanting to go after them, but I don't know how to get him to allow someone to get close to meet to eventually find a forever home. Yeah, that's really, really hard. I actually know that someone in our group, Stephanie, has a dog like that, and she ended up keeping the dog because he had too many issues as well with people. Um, yeah, with dogs like this, it takes so long for them to trust people that finding a forever home is going to be just really, really hard. Um, it might be that you need like a house with multiple dogs. I know I might have to tag Stephanie in that, because she's way more experienced with a dog like that and fostering, because she has her own little rescue going. Um, it also depends on what kind of training methods have you been trying so far, how long have you had the dog. I think it can be really hard to rehome a dog like that. And depending on how bad his reactivity is, it's also worth noting, and that sounds pretty extreme to some people, like, is this dog rehomable? Does this dog have a chance to live a good life with another family without a risk of proper injury? So that's something you also need to consider. Because a dog like that, they don't want people in the space. They need to feel really safe, and that unfortunately takes a very long time. Unless you can keep him, but obviously it's a foster dog, so you might not want to keep him. So that's a really tricky one, and I can't really give you a proper answer um, without knowing what you've already been trying. Is he on lead? I'm gonna assume. Is he muzzle trained? What type of reactivity does he have? Does he cower and hide in corners, or is he mostly forward reactive so that he's really defensive? Like, we need a lot more detail on this dog to be able to give you a better answer. Also worth probably doing a lot of confidence building activities with a dog like that outside of people. Rachel Miller, question 3. Any other tips and tricks on reactivity when seeing other dogs out walking? Yeah, my biggest tip is knowing where your dog is, and always be the barrier between the trigger and your dog, right? So if my microphone is my dog and this here is the other dog, I need to make sure I'm walking in between so I can block my dog off. That's what I always say that really, really helps. I've got a YouTube video of that as well. What other ones was I gonna say? Anyone seen another dog out walking? Sometimes crossing the road is just the easiest way to deal with something. Using scatter feeding, like dropping treats. Like, I'd never make a dog sit when I come across another dog, because it's already hard enough when a dog is reactive. And again, it depends on what type of reactivity it is when you're walking your dog. Like, if your dog is just excited, reactive, that gets a different response from me than a dog that's afraid. I might have to install a correction there depending on what your dog is doing, because it's okay to be overexcited or frightened, but it's not okay to be blowing up for no reason. So that's something that we'd have to consider. But body blocking is probably my number one that I use for a lot of dogs, and I think I'm gonna make a video on that pretty soon, because I've got that all videoed already. I just need to edit it. So that would be my main one for out walking. It's hard to answer because it says on any other tips and tricks, so I don't know which one I've given already. So there's that one. Having the right gear on is also really important. Like, I don't like to walk dogs on a harness when they are reactive because they have so much leverage to pull me around, and I have very little control over their bodies. So that's another tips and trick, I guess. Yeah. Let's move to question number 4. Man, I'm going fast. Kate Michaels, my 10-month-old Kelpie has started barking at visitors who come into our home. How do we manage this? So your dog needs to be on lead when people arrive. I don't know if your dog is already on lead. I'm going to assume she isn't, but that's the first thing you've got to do. Put your dog on lead. And then body blocking is probably going to be very helpful there as well. So if your dog is moving forward and trying to bark at the guest, you get in front of your dog and you go no, and you kind of push them back and you take control of the situation. And because your dog is on a lead, they can't squirrel around you and you can actually control the situation there. That's what I would do with a young dog that has started barking at visitors coming to the house. If you already do that, let me know, because then there is other stuff, but that would be the beginnings. The beginning that often makes a huge difference to most people's situations straight away. Question 5 by Helen Prescott. What's the best way to discourage a dog from barking at every sound in the neighborhood? A 2-year-old Jack Russell Terrier barks whenever she hears people walking past, or a door banging, lawnmower, someone calling their cat, etc. That's really hard. Like, is your dog an inside or an outside dog? If your dog is an inside dog, it could be helpful to put some music on, like some simple background music to drown out some of those noises. I also don't know how much um, she can see from outside. Like, some dogs lie in front of a window the whole day, so it might be helpful to block off some of the windows, either close the curtains or grab some of that film that you can put on windows if your dog can see outside all the time. It could also be that your dog needs more sleep, so it could be that you have to crate your dog for a few hours during the day so they can actually have a rest and they don't feel like they have to constantly be on alert. That's a pretty big one as well. Um, Having a good recall helps, and being able to tell your dog off also helps for excessive barking. Um, if it is a lot of barking all the time, I do really like to use the ultrasonic bark devices. They kind of look like a birdhouse, and they emit a sound that we can't hear, but a dog can hear, and they can work really well. It is a bit hit and miss because I've had dogs respond to it amazing, and other dogs not at all. Um, so it is hard for, like, I can't tell you why it works for some dogs and why it doesn't for other dogs, but that's definitely a recommendation if your dog barks a lot non-stop at whatever. Yeah, I think I bought mine for like 50 New Zealand dollars. I'm not sure where you are, Helen. But I'll see if I can post an example of those things in the comments so you can have a look at it. Um, but yeah, that would be a solution to stop some of the barking, but obviously that's like treating a symptom, right? We want to know why the dog is really barking, and that could be a lack of sleep or could be a bit of anxiety. So limiting the access to some of those areas would be helpful. Having a good recall, more sleep, or even like locking a certain area of the house, blocking a certain area of the house off so she doesn't have access to the backyard the whole time. Like, things like that could also work. All right. Next one is Ashley Martin. My biggest stress is dealing with the friendly dog that runs over of late. What is the best way to handle these situations and try and keep your dog calm? I think that's really a lot of people struggle with. Oh, he is friendly, that type of situation. I always carry something on me that can deter a dog. Yeah, so I love walking with my doggy don't. Again, I'll drop the link in the comments, which emits a really loud sound. It emits the sound of a taser, and it usually deters an off-lead dog quite well. And sometimes I've used a spray bottle that I can spray at another dog, also very handy. Some people walk with walking sticks or umbrellas. I think it's also a matter of figuring out your confidence as well. Like, I tend to block my dog. So again, if my microphone is my dog and I have a dog coming in from this end, I make sure I block my dog and don't give them access. If I can. And trying to stay as calm as possible. Because in the end, right, this is going to keep happening to you no matter how long you'll have a dog. Because people are just stupid when it comes to this, right? Like they will keep their dog running up to other people's dogs and think it's okay. So it's something that unfortunately we as reactive dog owners also have to learn how to deal with and look at our own anxiety of, okay, what do we do when a dog runs up? Like, how can I protect my dog and how can I feel safe enough? And it also has to do with scanning the environment. Like, I rarely walk somewhere and I'm not completely aware of all the dogs that are in the area, so I can move away way before it's necessary, like stuff like that. So that's something to consider as well. Um, and also, where am I walking? Is this a walk where I'm gonna come across a lot of off-lead friendly dogs? Then maybe I'm not gonna walk there at this time, or I'm not gonna walk there at all. Um, so that's something to consider. I think it is a part of dog life. Like I don't have the answer. I don't have an answer that says this is gonna stop friendly dogs from running at you, and this is how you should handle it, and you'll have always success. Because I haven't found that way yet. And if I did, I'd be rich by now. Because there's a lot of people that struggle with that issue. Um, Right, so having something on you to carry to deter another dog is going to be really good for your own confidence that you know that you can manage it. Um, and other than that, it's also try to not get too panicked every time a dog comes towards you because, most dogs are friendly, so we have to keep that kind of in mind that we don't completely freak out and that our reaction escalates the situation. Um, Especially if our dogs are not like full blown aggressive straight away. They're more like, oh, I'm uncomfortable, what do I do? That gives you some time to deal with the situation. Um, but yeah, I think that's a stress for everyone. So deciding on location is important and carrying something on you that deters a dog, which also then in turn gives you confidence that you're able to manage a situation better. All right. Question 7. This is a longer one from Susan. My dog is reactive to cyclist. He will go into defensive mode. He's 20 months old, so 2 years. He's been around them since I've had him as a puppy. The only time he does not react is if I put him into a sit and pet him and I reassure him it's okay. We actually wiped out a few of the bicyclists because he is a 90-pound Doberman and he lunges but never actually touched them but scared them. It's usually when they're passing us from behind. Any suggestions would be greatly appreciated. So, for this one, I would. Where would we start? I would probably do a lot of socialization around that. So I would go to areas where I know I'm going to come across a lot of bicycles, so I can get a lot of practice in. I would probably even get family to drive around on the bicycles and try approach you from the back a few times on a walk, so you can get going with that. The fact that he's wiped out a few cyclists is really concerning to me. And I think you're very lucky that you haven't had any official complaints yet um, for your dog. And that's on you. I am going to say it that way, but that's on you and your handling skills. You need to make sure that your dog is unable to lunge to a cyclist, and you need to be super hyper aware of your environment. Um, and then it's looking at what are you walking your dog on that they can lunge so far that cyclists fall off their bike out of fright, right? So maybe you need to move to like a head halter or a slip lead. I don't know if you're walking on a harness right now because that would definitely make things a lot harder to manage. Um, I personally wouldn't sit and pet him and reassure him because I just really don't think the whole it's okay is doing anything for the dog besides winding him up more. I would keep moving up and down or to the side so there is more space in between you guys. But more exposed, and I would even correct him for it. Honestly, if I had a dog that did that, I would either do a really good body block or I would correct with a spray bottle. If the doggy don't, that makes a loud noise, but that might frighten the cyclist as well. But he needs to know that that's not okay, especially if he has been around bicycles for that long. And then I also want to know what else does he do during the day besides his walk. But usually, if a dog is like drivey towards bicycles, they need a little bit of extra something to get that drive out. So, how much exercise is he getting? Or maybe we need to look at introducing a flirt pole to him so he gets an outlet to chase something, and at the same time, you're also working on impulse control to be able to tell him to get off the flirt pole whenever you want. And that way, he gets the chase and uh, he gets to do the chasing, but in a way that is controlled, and then eventually that will slowly start transferring to other stuff that he is chasing. Um, but yeah, I would definitely go and make sure you are able to correct him in a way that's actually effective, so he knows like, hey, this is not okay. Lunging for a cyclist, even if you get a fright from behind, is never okay. Yeah, because someone is going to get really injured at some point, whether it be a cyclist or your own dog, because they get into the spokes of the wheel of the bike. Like, yeah, that's if you're not sure what to do, I would even suggest going to a balance trainer that can help you. Because I think if you're shown what to do, you're like, oh my god, light bulb moment, and then it actually gets better a lot faster. I currently am training a dog that chases cars relentlessly, so that eventually might turn into some sessions that I might be able to film, and then you could use those. But yeah, that's not gonna be anytime soon at the moment. So hopefully this was a bit helpful for you. Oh, also before I forget, does your dog pull on lead? Because if your dog pulls on lead, then that's the first thing that we need to fix. Um, and we need to make sure that when you're walking down the path and the cyclists come down this side, right? That means that I'm so confused because the screen is mirrored. Yeah, so if this is your dog, this should be you, and that should be the cyclist. So wherever you're walking, if there is cyclists coming your way, you should always be able to block your dog in whatever direction you're going. Your dog should never be like this. So it should never be you, dog, cyclist. Yeah, because then that's how the lunging happens. So it should always be dog, you, cyclist. Okay, so that's another tip that you can implement straight away. All right, I hope that one helps for that one. Question 8 by Carrie Gonzalez. She has a 2-year-old kettle dog, a rescue dog. On our walks, he hears a dog bark and he lunges towards them, growls, and barks. He freaks out when a leaf blows by or a car with a loud muffler passes us. I've read to start by avoiding areas where dogs are, but we're in a cul-de-sac and can't since these two pit bulls run to their gate, growl, and attack each other 80 or 90% of the time we walk by. He also becomes aggressive and growls when people hug and say goodbye. We got some chews of Amazon, but they do nothing for him. How can I help him? Any suggestions? He whines and wags his tail when he sees our neighbor's 2-year-old St. Bernard outside, but I'm afraid to let him play as he becomes reactive when we get close to him. Whew, there's a lot to unpack in that one. First I want to go to he becomes aggressive and growls when people hug and say goodbye, that means your dog is resource guarding you. So that's like a whole different part of the reactivity. Yeah, so that alone needs training. Then he freaks out when a leaf blows by or a cat with a loud muffler passes us. That shows me that the dog has no confidence. Yeah, so you need to start building a lot on his confidence in being able to manage unsuspecting environments, yeah, and sounds. So, for example, I just uploaded a confidence game to my YouTube. I'll link it. That is a great way to start building confidence. Maybe putting him in the car and driving him out of the cul-de-sac and start walking somewhere really nice and quiet where no one is a good way, and start the dog sniffing. Climbing on things, doing enrichment games at home is also really, really, really helpful, because that at least gets his brain working, and it's a fun activity, so all the stress cortisol levels can come down a bit before you go into those walks. So that's working on his confidence, right? That still is not gonna, like, doing enrichment games is not gonna stop him from being reactive, but at least that can give him a little bit of an outlet, especially since he's a cattle dog. They want to have their brains activated, right? So there's that. I need to make a little note so I know what I talked about. La la la. On a dog, if he hears the dog bark, he lunges towards them and growls and barks. I'm assuming that that is on your walks. So on your walks, I need to know, and I feel like I'm repeating myself. I'm so sorry if I'm like sounding like a broken record. But does your dog pull on lead? If your dog pulls on lead, that's the first thing we need to fix. Okay? Dogs that pull on lead and are reactive, you can't start fixing that until they stop pulling on lead. Then again, you need to look at where are you in terms of the trigger. Yeah, so I'm back to this again. You, dog, trigger is never gonna go right. Oh man, I'll keep changing this. Really sorry, guys. Yeah, so if it's dog, you, trigger, great. Yes, always want you as a block between whatever it is your dog finds scary. Fence fighting, which is those two pit bulls behind a gate, is again different from reactivity towards dogs on the street. Yeah, so it's really hard that you have those two pit bulls at your gate. You do live in a cul-de-sac, so maybe you can walk the cul-de-sac the opposite way, so you don't have to pass right in front of the gate, but you can go across. Or you walk in the middle of the street if you have to create a bit of distance, and then just try and get past that gate as quick as you can, especially if those dogs are behind a well-fenced gate. Yeah, then don't worry that those dogs are growling and attacking each other, because that's just something that you can't fix. You have no control over those dogs behind the gate. If those dogs come out of the gate, well, that's a different story, right? Then I would not be walking my dog in that cul-de-sac ever. I would take my car, and if I had to, just drive one road further, park up, and start walking from there. So you don't have to go past those dogs every single time. Right? That's just keeping yourself and your dog safe. Avoiding areas where dogs are, yes, that can be good, but just avoiding is not going to fix your problem. So we do want to avoid at the beginning, like when we're doing our confidence building, or when we just want a calm sniff walk to get some stress out, or when we're practicing our loose leash walking, then yes, I don't want to be around dogs. But then I slowly want to introduce dogs. Yeah, and then maybe not those two pit bulls behind the gate. Again, get your dog into the car and go where there's maybe dogs 100 meters in the distance, and start walking and working from that side, right? And then it'll be slow progress. But I reckon if you get a good loose leash walk on the dog, that's already going to make a big difference. And you need to do confidence building, because if he freaks out from a leave and loud sounds, he has no confidence, right? And it might make you anxious, so now he also has no confidence that you are able to manage the situation. So who is he supposed to follow? Yeah, so it might be that he has lacking confidence in you as well, and that's something to work on. And the St. Bernard, I would just ignore that for now. Like, your priority at the moment is not your dog playing with other dogs, it's your dog being able to pass other dogs without freaking out. Yeah, so the playing might come later. Like, at the moment, your aim is neutrality, not play with other dogs. Alright, question 9 by Les Duggan. I'm really struggling with my storm when a dog is behind us. We're getting there, finally. We're disengaging when we're standing still. We're brilliant doing the about turn a few times, then go past the dog coming towards us. But when a dog is behind us, Storm will continue to look over her shoulder. I have a nice loose lead, and she's trotting by my side, but she will insist on keep looking behind her. I alternate between a lead check and voice encouragement, and a lead check if she does not listen. She gets so focused and upset by a dog behind her that she does not look where she's going. I understand why, as were attacked from behind. Unfortunately, on parts of our walk, there are paths that I cannot turn off for a while. I get some success if I get her G'd up and I try to run a few steps, but she goes straight back to looking behind again. She panics if a dog is up to 30 meters at a gas behind us. Alright, so there's a few things I would do with that. So, if possible at all, and I know you said you can't turn off a path, but if you could move to the side as far as you could, even if you have to stand in the bush, and wait for the dog to pass, and at the same time you keep dropping treats on the ground, so scatter feeding, that could be a good option. Another one would be to have your dog walk in front of you when there is a dog behind you instead of next to you, so your dog feels that a bit more safer because you're now in between the trigger and your dog. Yeah, so again, we're with this now, but instead of going sideways, we're that way. Yeah, this makes no sense if you're listening to this without video, but hey, here we go. Yeah, so we want to move our dog in front of us so we are in between the trigger, so that may work for that case. Um, Another one might be where I would turn around and start walking towards the person. I mean, I'm gonna assume that this is not a path that's like packed with dogs, because then I would just choose a different path until she's more ready for dealing with this. But if it's just one dog behind you and then it's you, and then it might be another dog, but they're walking in the same direction you were going, I would turn around and start walking towards that dog because you said you're able to deal with that now. And then as you pass them, keep walking for a little bit and then turn around again. So now you're behind that dog. So that could be a way to manage that situation on that specific path. And other than that, I would say if you could practice this at a wider path, maybe with a friend's dog, or you do like a little shout out on a Facebook group where you're like, hey, can somebody help me with this? So you go actually straight walking, so it's not narrow where your dog feels like they can't go anywhere. And you just go for a walk and you have the people walk behind you for a while. Yeah, and then that way you can get some forced practice in. Because if we wait until we're at a path and that's the only reps we can get in, you don't get a lot of training opportunities. So if you can set up a training opportunity where you are doing all these things with your dog, walking with a dog behind them, then you probably get progress much faster. So those are my suggestions at this point. And yeah, the lead check I would probably do that as well. And the encouragement too. I don't think either is wrong. You might even want to use a lure, but I mean, depending how long the path is, you don't want to be luring your dog with a treat this whole way. Um, yeah, and then it's going to be trial and error because the things that I suggest, right, those are just things I can think of now on the spot. Um, and then if I was to holding the lead, I might be thinking of something completely different. So it's good if you could practice some of those things and then let me know how you go. Um, yeah, I think those are the main questions. I didn't get any additional questions, and that's all good. What I'm gonna do is I'm going to mark every question where I started, so it's easy for you to find back. And then tomorrow I'll upload it to YouTube. And yeah, I hope it was helpful for some of you. And see you next time. Thanks, guys.